About 5 years ago, I lived in a downtown in a major city in the US. I've always been a night person, so I would often find myself bored after my roommate, who was decidedly not a night person. When he went to sleep, I wanted the. Let's just say I used to spare the time by going on long walks and spent most of the time thinking. I spent most of the time just thinking. I stayed this way for 4 years until that one night. I was walking alone, and never once have I ever had a reason to feel afraid. I'd always used to joke with my roommate. Even the drug dealers in the city were polite, but all that changed in just a few minutes of the one night. It was a Wednesday, somewhere between 1 and 2 in the morning. I was walking near a police patrol park, quite a ways from my apartment. It was a quiet night, even for a weeknight, with very little traffic and almost no one on foot. The park was really empty. I turned a short side street in order to loop back to my apartment when I first noticed him. At the far end of the street on my side was a man. He was dancing. It was a strange dance, similar to the waltz, but he finished each box with an odd forward. I guess you could say he was dance walking, headed straight for me. Deciding he was probably drunk, I stepped as close as I could to the road to give him a majority of the sidewalk to pass me by, but the closer he got, the more I realized how horrifying his face was. He was wearing an old suit. He danced closer still, and I could make out his face. His eyes were open wide and wild. Headed tilted back slightly, looking off in the sky. His mouth was formed in a painfully wide cartoon of a smile. Between the eyes and the smile, I decided to cross the street before he danced any closer. I took my eyes off of him just for a second to cross the empty street. As I reached the other side, I glanced back and stopped dead in my tracks. He had stopped dancing and was standing on one foot in the street, perfectly parallel to mine. He was facing me, but still looking skyward. Smile. He still had that smile, still wide on his lips. I was completely and utter unnerved by this. I started walking again, but kept my eyes on the man. He didn't move. Once I had put about a half block between us, I turned away from him just for a moment to watch the sidewalk in front of me. The street and the sidewalk ahead of me were completely empty. Still unnerved, I looked back to where he had been, standing to find him gone. For the briefest of moments, I felt relieved until I noticed him. He'd crossed the street and was now slightly crouched down. I couldn't tell for sure due to the distance and the shadows, but I was certain he was facing me. I looked away from him for 10 seconds, so it was clear that he had moved fast. I was so shocked that I stood there for some time, staring at him. Then he started moving toward me again. He took a giant He was tiptoeing to me, as if he were a cartoon character sneaking up on someone. Except he was moving very, very quickly. I'd like to say that at this point I ran away or pulled my pepper spray or my cell phone or something, but I just stood there, completely frozen, as the smiling man crept toward me. And then he stopped. again, but about a car length away from me, still smiling. His smile, still looking toward the sky. When I finally found my voice, I bluttered the first thing that came to mind. What I meant to ask was, "What do you want?" in an angry, commanding tone, but what came out was a whimper. What? Regardless of whether or not humans can smell fear, they can currently hear it. I heard it in my own voice, and that only made me more afraid, but he didn't react to it at all. He just stood there, smiling. And then, after what felt like forever, he turned around very slowly and started dance walking away. Just like that. Not wanting to turn my back to him again, I just watched him go until he was as far away that I couldn't see him. I was relieved. Until as I watched him go, almost he was out of sight, and then I realized something. He wasn't moving away anymore, nor was he dancing. I watched in horror as the distant shape of him grew larger. He was running towards me. I ran away from him. I ran as well. I ran until I was off the side of the road and back into a better lit road. There was better traffic. Looking behind me then, he was nowhere to be found. The rest of my way home, I kept glancing over my shoulder, always expecting to see him. That stupid smile, but he never was there. I lived in that city for 6 months after that night. I never went out for another walk ever again. There was something about his face that always taunted me. He didn't look drunk, he didn't look high. He looked completely and utterly insane. And that is a very, very scary thing to see.